started asking about the development of the story and what that process was like of getting the script together, and just maybe what the inspiration was in creating the story for the film overall.
Well, Lee and I have known one another for a long time, and we've created short films and television programs. So we've got a clear sense, really, of what each other's taste is, what we like, what we don't like, what our values are. So when we came together to create the film, initially there was a lot of conversation about what kind of film we were going to make. What, on a very basic level, what the themes were going to be, what the story was going to be, absolutely about the genre, because there are so many different types of horror film. What type of horror film were we going to make? So initially there was just a lot of conversation, and then slowly from that, one of the most interesting ideas that emerged was that we look at some of the ancient stories of the Mabinogion, which are a series of Welsh kind of Celtic stories, where bizarre and horror and terrifying things happen. So we started to look at that because we were very much in love with this idea that it was a film born from the place that it was made in. And once we had a clear sense of what we were making and what we were trying to say with the film, it wrote itself quite quickly. And again, because Lee and I have got an established working relationship, there were a series of conversations and further drafts kind of fell from those conversations. So it was quite a straightforward process, which I know is unusual for lots of writers.
And also, Lee, I wanted to ask you about then going on to direct the film and what that experience was like of going from maybe being involved in creating the story and just really into directing the film as well overall.
Yeah, I mean, like Roger was saying, it's the kind of the fruits of a long working relationship, I guess. He does the magic and does the story, and then it landed in my inbox one day, and it was in really good shape. And then, of course, we one of the biggest challenge in pre-production was attempting to find a location that was suitable, and already at script stage, because we discussed this before, we wanted it to be a contemporary house, because I think one imagines a Welsh horror film being set in an old stone cottage in the landscape somewhere, and it being kind of in midwinter or whatever, and we wanted to subvert that and turn that cliche on its head. So I did a trawl of the internet and had a look for some architecturally notable houses throughout Wales, and I think I want to say it was one of the first, if not the first, that I saw. And then I dragged Roger along with me to see it one day, and we sort of fell in love with it. It's a magnificent John Pawson designed house of glass and Japanese bricks, and it seemed to me to be the perfect kind of architectural expression of almost a metaphor for the family. It's odd, it's strange, it feels out of place within the landscape, and it's hermetically sealed, thereby holding the whole family in, and where they gradually drive each other mental.
Also, I wanted to ask about then going on to cast the film and what that experience was like of really finding the main family in particular, and what that experience was like of bringing the actors on board for the film.
Are you still there? It's frozen. Hello? Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back. The casting, Wales is quite small. We have about 600,000 people speak Welsh in Wales, and probably 1 million throughout the world, and therefore the acting pool the talent pool is relatively small. So with Ines, whose work I was familiar with anyway, And it seemed to me that she was perfect. She has a wonderful stillness to her that is just beguiling to watch, and she seemed to be the perfect actress for this role. I mean, on the page, I mean, she's present and her power is felt, but you know, if you were to measure a role in terms of how many lines she speaks, she doesn't utter a word for the first 20 minutes, or if not longer. So, you know, I also knew that Annes, being a fabulous actor, would be up for this creative challenge. And then, of course, there are the other characters. I mean, Nia Roberts, who plays the mother, again, both Roger and I were familiar with Nia's work. Nia had worked on a project that we had produced in the past. She's a brilliant actress with a wonderful sense of presence, and is perfect at kind of charting the demise of that. Ultimately, she's sort of an upper class snob who ends up. Yeah, I don't want to give the story away, but anyway, it's a wonderful fall from grace.
Once the actors came on board, what was that experience like of really getting to work with them and building their characters' relationships as well?
Sorry, I missed that. You dropped out then.
Once the actors came on board, what was it like getting to work with them and building their characters' relationships together as well?
Oh yeah. It was we. You know, I'd had a few conversations with the main thing was persuading them that that it was going to work, because it, you know, if you consider that I don't think ours is the first, well, one of the probably the first made for cinema horror film in the Welsh language, and therefore a lot of the actors who we work with are familiar with working in television, and in a very kind of naturalistic kind of way. And of course, this sort of traverses the styles of acting. So it was you know, what was interesting was seeing them read it and then go, oh goodness, this is unusual. But actually, they were all very much up for it. And once you do a bit of analysis on the text, what you realize is that, you know, the horror side, it's the story of 5 individuals. Or 4 individuals in terms of the family with addictions, I guess, to an extent. They're all addicted to something, and so there's something very real to hook onto, and then the process was straightforward.
And also, I wanted to ask about the stunt work overall and creating those action sequences, especially within the house. And what was that experience like of really maybe choreographing those action sequences throughout production as well?
Yeah, we didn't have a stuntman, did we? Did we?
No,
we didn't. No,
not in the end.
No, don't tell anybody that, obviously. Because actually, this is quite interesting. So a lot of it feels quite violent, I think, but I'd kind of taken my cue from, from the master of this sort of work, Hitchcock, where actually the violence is, and the action is, and the horrific action that happens is actually suggested. I mean, you don't see very much of it at all, and as such, I think it's stronger for it. You know, often in films these days, you see the violence and the blood and the gore, and actually when it's left to the audience to imagine that, it's a far more potent experience.
And also, Roger, I wanted to ask you in particular about also producing the film and what that experience was like throughout the production of also producing as well.
Yeah, it's like with lots of with everything really, you know, it's about persuading people to come on the journey with you. And we were lucky really that because Lee and I are relatively well respected amongst our peers in the industry, people wanted to work with us. We got a fantastic cinematographer, Bjorn Bratberg, who's originally from Norway, and you know, he read the script and he wanted to come on board. So I think, you know, in terms of once people knew that Lee was directing and Bjorn was the cinematographer, they were prepared to move with us to a very small village in the middle of rural Wales, and spend the best part of 3 weeks creating this mad film. And as Lee says, we were also kind of in uncharted territory, because not very many cinema films get made in Welsh, and this absolutely is the first horror film that's been made in the language for cinema release. And you're just winning people's trust and making them as excited about the project as you are, while all the time hiding all the fears, suppressing about having enough money to get it done, and all the things that are potentially going wrong in the background, and pulling that jigsaw together. But as with everything, it's about getting the right people on board, and getting them to have confidence in what it is you're trying to make.
And also, speaking of working with your cinematographer, I also wanted to ask you both a little bit more about that experience and your collaboration together, especially once you began filming within the house, and what that process was like of really figuring out how you wanted to visually shoot the film as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Bjorn a couple of times before. I met him about 5 years ago on a Welsh language drama series that we produced here in Wales. And a lot of what you see is the product of 5 years of conversations about what we like and what we don't like. And what I love about Bjorn is that he's from Norway, so he sees the world differently to me, actually, which I always find fascinating. And with this film, I think a lot of the challenge was to create something that was that felt other, that felt different, that felt unique. And I think obviously the fact it's in Welsh, I think that's a unique selling point for this film. It does feel other, but also the way that Bjorn has shot it and we framed it, that also feels different. I think there's this sort of expectation that a horror film should be kind of, and also should be sort of handheld, and should be busy, and we should be cutting all and creating tension through the cut. And actually, what we've decided to do is to create tension through holding off cutting. By maintaining shots and allowing them to play out. And I think that creates an expectation in the audience that something is going to happen, and it never quite happens. And it's about managing expectations and creating frustrations and tensions for the audience. And Bjorn's sort of natural style, we quite like to shoot wide, and lots of the camera movements are quite slow. There's very little panning or tilting or extraneous movement. They feel that the shots feel very precise, and in that precision there's a sort of a tension, I think.
And also, I wanted to ask you both about having the movie play during this year's South by Southwest, and what that experience has been like of really preparing to have the virtual screening, and what that experience has just been like overall getting to promote the movie through the festival as well.
Yeah, well, we were thrilled when South by said they wanted to premiere the film. It's a festival that I've obviously been aware of for a long, long time, and have always imagined being able to visit Austin and have this great experience of film and music, and kind of exchange of ideas. And regrettably, in the year when I finally get to be a part of, we're unable to travel. But we're really excited about finally showing the film to people. The guys at South by are really excited about the film, are really supportive of the film, and I think they're doing some really interesting stuff online around enabling people to access it and interact with us if they if they choose to, even though we're not there.
I mean, interestingly, I'd love to go. I mean, I'd love to go. I'd love to be present in person. But there are benefits, I think, to it being an online festival. I mean, I dare say more people might get to see it, you know, albeit not in a cinema. But you know, let's look on the bright side. At least it's happening, and our little film gets to sort of, let's have an airing, and we'll, you know, it's a cool US festival, and I think that's a real positive thing.
And then lastly, I also wanted to ask about maybe what's coming up next with the film after it plays at South by, and are you interested in going to more virtual festivals, or just maybe what your plans are coming up for the film?
It's very much the start of the journey for us. So obviously, because of the pandemic, the start of our journey has been slightly delayed because we were completing the film and festivals were being cancelled right, left, and centre last year. So we're just thrilled that it's finally getting out there. Undoubtedly, there'll be more festivals. The film has been picked up by a distributor in the UK and Ireland, a distributor called Picture House. So they will be releasing at some point, hopefully this year. And what's exciting about Picture House as well is that because they own a chain of cinemas, they very much they very much believe in film exhibition. So we're pleased because it means the film is going to be seen on the large screen, unlike some other films maybe which will premiere on streaming services, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But we made this film pre-pandemic in the hope that it would be seen in brick and mortar buildings. So more festivals, and then hopefully the film being seen here in the UK in cinemas, and hopefully getting picked up in other territories as well. What I would love to happen is for it to be picked up in the US, and then hopefully by the time they get ready to show it, we'll be able to fly out and see it to American audiences.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both again for taking the time out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank